Hello, miracles of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. The story which Anas told about Al-Ula ibn al-Khadrami. Imam al-Bukhari related on the authority of Anas, who said Umar ibn al-Khattab prepared an army which has led by Al-Ula ibn al-Khadrami. Anas continues, I was in that army, and when we reached the spot we were heading for, we discovered that the enemy had destroyed all the water wells. It was very hot, and so we and our animals became extremely thirsty. It was a Friday, and so when the sun started to come down, Al Ula gathered us and prayed 2 rakats and then raised his hands invoking Allah, but there were no clouds in the sky. Hands down there, then the wind started to blow and clouds gathered, and it started to rain until all the roads became flooded with water, and we drank until we quenched our thirst and gave water to our riding animals. Then we encountered our enemy, who had already crossed a small gulf in the sea until they reached an island. Alula stood by the gulf and said, "O Allah, the exalted, the most glorious, the forbearing, the most generous." And then he said, "Cross in the name of Allah." And as continuous, we crossed, and the water was so shallow that even the feet of our animals did not get wet. It did not take us too long before we gained victory over our enemy. We killed some, took others as war captives, and started on our way back. When we reached the Gulf on the way back, Al Ula repeated what he had first said, and so we crossed again, and the water did not even get the feet of our animals wet. Anas continues, it was not too long before he died, so we dug a grave for him, washed him, and buried him. A man then came along and asked, "Who is that?" We answered him, "He is the best of all people. He's Ibn al Khadrami." The man then said, "This land rejects the dead bodies, so it would be better if you transfer him to another land 1 or 2 miles away," which does not do so. We replied, "We cannot leave our companions to be eaten by wild animals," and so we redug the grave when we animals, and so we redug the grave when we reached the spot where he was buried. Our companions was not there, but there the grave was glittering with light as far as you can see. So we put the rubble back into the grave and left. The army which walks on the water. Imam al-Burayqi related on the authority of who said, "We reached the Tigris River at the Battle of Al-Madain, and the Persians were on the opposite bank of the river. A Muslim man said, 'In the name of Allah,' and he entered the water with his horse, which started to run over the water. The rest of the army then said, 'In the name of Allah,' and broke into the water like him, and here they were all running with their horses and walking over the water. The Persians then looked at them and said, 'Crazy people, crazy people,' and they fled. The Muslims then started to see if they had missed anything, and it was only a cup which had been hung by the saddle of one of the warriors. Then they started to divide the war booty which the enemy had left behind between themselves. Miracles related to the a cure of disease. The Prophet, peace be upon him, cures the boy who is suffering from epilepsy due to being touched by the Satan. Um, Imam Ahmad narrated on the authority of Yahya Murrah, who said a woman came to the Prophet, peace be upon him, with a son of hers who was suffering from epilepsy.